I'm Jason Harris, founder of Jason's Connection, and today we're meeting with Chris Seelbach, Cincinnati City Council member. You're from Louisville. How did you get here to Cincinnati?
That's right. So I grew up in Louisville in a park called Pleasant Ridge Park. Went to St. Helen Grade School and St. X High School. And after high school, I was looking at colleges, and I settled on Xavier University. Wanted a smaller private college, but in a bigger city. And I also wanted to be driving distance away from home. So Xavier was a perfect choice. So that's what brought me to Cincinnati and to Xavier 17 years ago.
Wow. And what made you want to get involved with city government?
Yeah, so I always had an interest in politics and government. You know, I'm an only child, and I grew up with a family that talked about presidential elections and what was going on and the importance of issues that they cared about. And, you know, my mom comes from a very poor family with a single mother who worked incredibly hard to raise 6 kids, 5 boys, and my mother. And so they struggled, but through hard work and opportunity, they were able to be successful, which inspired me, and it continues to inspire me to fight for people who, you know, maybe down on their luck at some point in their life, but just need a little help. And then when I came to Cincinnati in 2001, I was still in college at Xavier. I met a guy named David Crowley, who had returned from a lifetime service in the military, in the Peace Corps, and his brother had recently passed. And the family owns Crowley's Pub, a bar in Mount Adams. And so David had come home to take over running the bar. And he decided that, you know, this was later in his life. I think he was in his 60s, maybe early 70s, that, you know, he wanted to run for council, not because he wanted to be president one day or governor. He just wanted to kind of give back to Cincinnati and try to do what he thought was right. And he happened to have 4 kids and 2 gay, 2 straight. And he said, you know, my gay son can be a jerk sometimes, but I like him just the same. And so I had this guy who I felt like was doing it for the right reasons. He was funny, and he was also a great dad. And so he really inspired me to be a part of his campaign. And he won in 2001, and I volunteered in his campaigns and then worked for him at City Hall. So that was really what got me involved. Besides growing up having just a general interest, it's kind of what got me involved in Cincinnati government and politics.
Wow. So what are the issues you like to focus on in city government?
So I ran for council for one reason. So Cincinnati, for 65 years, we've been losing population. So between 2000 and 2010, 10% of our population left. And how government is funded local government is primarily through the income tax and also some property tax. Sales tax goes to the county. And so when you have less and less people living here, you have less people who have jobs here. And that means less income revenue for the city to support things like police and fire and road construction and everything that the city does. So for 65 years, as we were losing population, you know, we were having to decide, are we going to cut health centers? Are we going to close pools? Are we going to lay off police and fire officers? So I ran to try to figure out what we can do, how we can do a better job of growing our city, of increasing population, or at least stabilizing it, so that we can not have to decide what to cut, but can start deciding where we're going to invest and where we can increase service and jobs. And so I think how we do that is, for too long we were focusing on competing with our suburbs and not accepting that we're an urban city. And you know, someone once said to me, when you go to Chicago, you don't say, well, show me your suburbs, I can't wait to see your suburbs. You know, you expect that there's good public transportation, that you can get around the city, that there's a thriving arts and entertainment scene, interesting housing stocks,
Yeah.
walkable neighborhoods, that there's not huge box stores with huge parking lots everywhere. Those are the kinds of things we hadn't been focusing on. So that's what I've tried to focus on in my time of council, of truly embracing that we are a city, and that if we want to attract people and jobs, we have to act more like a city.
Now, there's been one major part of the city that's been focused on. Is that going to start coming to other parts of the city as well?
So you're talking about downtown over the Rhine? Yeah, so, I like to make the analogy, if you have an apple, the only way the whole apple tastes good is if you have a good core. It starts with that core, and so we have to have a good core of our city, which is our downtown and over the Rhine neighborhoods. And as you know, over the Rhine a decade ago was one of the most unsafe neighborhoods in the country.
Oh, yeah. Buildings
were falling into the street. Like, our only option was, do we tear down buildings or do we stabilize it? I mean, almost every storefront was closed up. The sidewalks were crumbling. So we had to make a decision on our city, and I think we had to start with our worst neighborhood, and also because it's part of our core neighborhoods. And we also had the opportunity to take a neighborhood that was basically abandoned, and with these incredible buildings and infrastructure, and bring it back to life. And so I think it was good that we started in our downtown over the Rhine. But absolutely, we know how to do it, right?
Yeah.
It's successful. So we have to use that same kind of model and excitement and take it into our neighborhoods, which we're doing. Our port authority, which sounds kind of like you're dealing with cruise ships or something, but it's really just the name of an organization that is charged with kind of doing the same thing for our neighborhoods. And there's other groups, but they've been doing amazing things in Bond Hill. The former Jordan's Crossing, which was just an abandoned shopping center, is now demolished, and the whole property is ready for mixed-use development that will help anchor and do the same kind of transformational project that we've done over the Rhine and Bond Hill. Madisonville is also expanding around the medical center there, and there's lots going on there. We've seen in Price Hill, we just opened up theater, which will hopefully anchor that neighborhood. Westwood, we're helping develop a Westwood Square anchored by Madcap Puppets. So, yes, we can't, I'm not going to say that every neighborhood, we have 52 neighborhoods, and if you have $100, it's better to not just give every neighborhood $2, but see where you can get the biggest bang for your buck and spend $25 in 4 neighborhoods. That's where you're going to have. So, unfortunately, every neighborhood is not going to see the kind of transformation right now that Over the Rhine has seen. But I think that many of the neighborhoods are getting some really good attention.
Yeah, and I think even with that, I think there's points of people want to see some individuality, too, of how the neighborhoods are sort of done. Because, well, many people praise Over the Rhine. There's some things about relocation and other things that not every neighborhood in Cincinnati needs to be another Over the Rhine. They can fit into their own flair and sort of historical perspective that they have.
Exactly. I mean, we have 52 neighborhoods that all have their own identity. And, just like there's goods and bad parts of globalization, we don't want every part of the world to look like the United States. We want each neighborhood to have their own character and culture. So it's important that we maintain that.
Thank you. So you were the first openly gay councilperson in Cincinnati, one of the first in the country. What kind of response did you get from that? Positives, negatives, discrimination, or anything? Yeah,
so, when I first decided to run for office, I met with a lot of people, and almost all of the political kind of who they would consider insiders, said the same thing, which is that, we like you, we think you would be a good council member, but you can't win. You're too young. I was 30 at the time. I'm 35 now. And you're openly gay. And this is a city that probably was at one point the most anti-gay city in the country. And you're not from here. And so they said, we like you, you'd be good, but you can't win. And, that kind of limitation just on who I am, not based on what I bring to the table or my values or beliefs or ideas, is exactly what motivated me to prove them wrong and say, thank you for telling me that, but I'm going to prove you wrong. And when I do, I want you to, write me a check. No, that's not true. But it really was what lit my fire even more. And so, I didn't run for council saying, please vote for me because I'm gay. I said, here's what I'd like to bring to the table. Here's what I can offer as a council member. If you think that that's a good idea, then please vote for me and support me. And, I am gay, and I'm not going to hide that. I don't think there's anything, absolutely nothing to be ashamed of, or I embrace that. But it's a part of me. And just like being from Louisville is a part of me. And being 6 foot tall is a part of me. And so, there really wasn't much negative reaction to that. I'm sure that some people, thought, I'm not going to vote for this person just because they're gay. And as a voter, you get to decide that. Voters can decide to vote for someone based on whatever. I mean, they can decide, I'll pick the most beautiful person if they wanted to. So I respect voters' position. But, in the end, they thought that I should have a shot. And I'm grateful for that. And I think that I've proven that there's things much broader than LGBT rights that I care about that I've been able to change in our city.
Great. So we'll get on to some of those other things, but first, how do you feel about the Supreme Court decision on gay marriage?
Well, I don't. It's hard to put into words how I feel about it. As a kid growing up, most people think about what will their future look like and what will their adulthood look like. And, we think of, well, I want to be a police officer, or I want to be a doctor. And then we also think of, I want to be married, and I want to have kids, and I want to have a white picket fence, or whatever your ideas are as a kid. And as a gay kid, I never thought it would ever be possible that I would be able to find someone, fall in love, and then marry them. And in my lifetime, I just never thought that would be possible. And so, knowing that the decision was coming last week or early this week, I prepared to, be disappointed. And, you had to think, well, it's just not going to happen. But Friday morning, when we found out that marriage equality was now in every state and nationwide, it was a really powerful moment. And, I wish I cried more, because crying is like the ultimate detox, I think. Like, it cleanses you. But I'm just not a crier. But when the decision came down, it really hit me. And I felt more clean than ever after, because I did cry a lot. And it was just a really powerful moment in our history, I think.
Oh, definitely. LGBT people still deal with a great bunch of discrimination in the workplace and other people. What do you think you can do to change this?
Yeah, so I think the best, the laws are changing. You can still be fired in the state of Ohio for being gay. So you could go on your lunch break and marry your partner, and then come back to your workplace, and your boss says, "Where'd you go to have lunch?" And you say, "I actually went to the probate court to get married to my partner," and he could say, "You're fired," and that's legal. So the laws are not there yet. All of them, but they're going to be there soon, right? But we also know that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibited discrimination based on a race and gender, national origin, and age, but yet there is racism and ageism every day. So the work that really to bring full equality and change people's hearts and minds, it goes on long after laws are changed. So we still have to talk about why, discriminate against people just because of who they love is wrong. And discriminate against people because of their gender identity is wrong. So what I'm going to do is continue to talk about that. And then there's, I don't want to say that we've moved to a different part of the movement where we need to focus on transgender. We always should have been focusing more on transgender equality. But I will tell you that it is still a very raw movement. Yesterday, a transgender woman of color, as a last resort, reached out to me because she's homeless. She's literally been fired from her job 4 months ago because she's trans. Because of that, she couldn't pay rent for 4 months and finally got evicted. She doesn't have a family to support her, and she's homeless without anything. And what do we do? I mean, that's all too common. Violence against transgender people, especially transgender women of color, and homelessness. And she's 22. And so we have to do a better job supporting each other, and that includes all of us, not just LGBT people.
Yeah, I think there's 2 points we want to get on there. First, I want to ask about asexuality, and I think people have been wondering if that should be added to LGBTQ. Right. What does that mean? I don't know if there's as much known discrimination, but there is a lot of stigma around it, it seems.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that I'm the expert on asexuality or is asexuality a part of the sexual orientation spectrum? So I don't know. So LGBTQ, and there's LGBTQIA is the so lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, intersex, and the A I've heard is both ally and asexual. So maybe that is included, but gender and sexual orientation is a spectrum, and all parts of that spectrum should be included in our movement. Yeah,
and I think, I mean, this is what we at Jason's Connection kind of do, and you talked about it, like homelessness is an issue that goes through a lot of different civil rights movements, whether it be people who come out of prison or disabilities. Is there sort of that, you think there's sort of a way that these different movements can work together? Because it seems like in some ways they are trying to accomplish a lot of the same things.
Yeah, I mean, we should be working together. Yeah. I mean, the civil rights movement, the movement for people, the ADA passed in 1990.
Yeah.
But yet, Kevin Flynn, who is on council with me and is in a wheelchair, still can't access many of the buildings in downtown Over the Rhine.
Yeah.
They just don't comply with federal law. And so we should be working, hate is hate.
Yeah.
And it all is rooted in the fear of being different.
Yeah.
And we should be working with all people who are discriminated against or marginalized just because of their difference. If we did work together, we would be in the majority, and the so-called majority would be worried about their rights. I mean, the rights of the minority should never be voted on by the majority.
Yeah.
But if all of the minority communities came together, we would be in the majority.
Well, I mean, do you think there's a movement for the disabilities movement, which seems like, just on a different, it's sort of behind some of the other movements, just in the fact that, there's people who can't necessarily always get the chance to talk for themselves, or there is a lot of negative stigma. I mean, is there a way for people to sort of come together and start building up tons of different movements, do you think?
I think that the opportunity exists.
Yeah.
Now, I went to school last summer for a couple months, and I learned that leadership is a verb and not a noun. So there really aren't leaders.
Yeah.
There's people who express leadership. And so the opportunity absolutely exists for more collaboration, but is there enough leadership of people that will actually do the work? We'll see. I think it's possible.
So you talked a little bit about the ADA, and it actually is the 25th anniversary this summer. What impact do you think it has? Good? Where do you think it needs to go from here? I mean, is there certain groups of people that it has more effect on? I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm a person with a disability. I'm not exactly sure how the ADA actually affected me.
Yeah, I mean, is it good? Yes, it's good. It's passed. Is it enforced? No. And are we living up to the spirit of it? No.
Yeah.
Probably not. Hardly. So there's disappointment because we approve buildings and zoning changes all the time, and then they build the buildings and they don't conform to the ADA, which is, and I'm talking about wheelchair accessible and everything.
Yeah.
But there are absolutely other forms of ability that. But specifically for people who are physically, we need to do a much better job. The whole country does.
Yeah.
But also in terms of other ability or disabilities, it's why Starfire and the organizations like it are so important, because for too long, people who are different and who have different abilities have been marginalized and have been pushed all together in homes or places that are not natural.
Yeah.
And we're all better if we live among people who truly reflect this world. And so it's why Starfire's mission is so important. And we need to do more of it.
So, I mean, I know there's also a percentage of the LGBTQ community who associates as also disabled and wants to have a voice in that from you. They feel, I mean, I've heard some people feeling left out. Is there some of that there, or do you think there should be more recognition of disabilities in the LGBT community?
I absolutely think we need to do a better job. I mean, I had a great conversation with two African American members of the LGBT community about this yesterday. About they didn't feel included, and even within minority communities, there's a sense of, well, this is who seems to be in the leadership is the white cisgender male Christian no disability man, and that's me actually. But we have to do a better job of including people within our minority communities that are even more different. I mean, how you do that is the harder problem. Because you can only bring someone to water. What's the metaphor? You can only bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And so I will tell you, in the 15 years that I've been part of the LGBT community in Cincinnati, I've been a part of hundreds of conversations about how to make our LGBT community more diverse. And the answer is just not easy. We can reach out. I've gone to so many diverse communities to try to get people involved. But in the end, it's just not easy. And we just have to keep trying.
And this isn't a problem just within the LGBT. This is a lot of different movements. Disabilities has a problem with this. A lot of different movements have a problem with becoming too insecular.
You're right. And so if you have insights, I'd love to hear them. I mean, in the end, people do tend to attract to people who are like them. And you can't force someone to go out of their comfort zone. You can tell them why it's a good idea, how they could probably be a more fulfilled person. In the end, you can't force someone. And we all have a limited amount of time, and everyone works hard. And so in the free time, there's people that they just want to be around people like them. Now, I'm not to judge them, but I think their life could be more fulfilled by being around people that are different from them.
Totally. I know, I mean, in my own life, the most inspirational, the most things that have had the biggest impact is when I'm around people who are nothing like me, and I learn from that, and I may not always agree, but you sort of get some respect from that of other people. What are your goals as a city councilman? Do you plan to run for higher office? Do you want to declare to be president on this?
I'll declare that I'm not running for president ever on this show. No, I mean, I'm enjoying being a city council member. In politics, things change overnight or even every hour. And so anyone that could tell you what they want to do is just not, I don't think it's realistic. So I still have 2.5 years on my term. So that's where I'm at right now. My goals, as we've talked about, I think that the scale in terms of development, we've focused a lot of time and money and sweat on bringing development and subsidizing development, which is probably what we should have been doing as a city. But I think that because we are growing and people are genuinely excited about bringing jobs here and living here, that need for subsidies probably needs to decrease. And I think that the need for focus and resources and sweat on the human element of our city needs to increase. More than 50% of kids in Cincinnati live in poverty. Wow. Our shooting, the shooting statistics are up this summer. I think there's no immediate solution. So this 90-day crime plan, if you want to prevent the crime that's going to happen in the next 90 days, you needed to start 5 years ago or maybe even longer. So if we really want to be a city that values people, which we have to do a better job, we need to be focusing more, especially on young kids, on early childhood education, and making sure that kids are raised in healthy environments. So my goals for the next 2.5 years is to focus less on giving big developers subsidies and tax breaks, and more on investing in our kids and the people of our city.
And that definitely seems, I know other cities have done that to get people who they live there, stay there too. That tends, when they feel a city sort of is given to them, they want to give back in some ways. I've heard from other studies and other things.
Yeah, and one of the things I have to point out, when I was growing up, so I grew up in a Catholic church in Louisville, and our church really was, we take care of our parishioners. And the focus of the church was like, if someone lost their job, it's the parishioners that step up and help them. If someone lost a parent or has health issues, it was the parishioners that delivered food and make sure you were okay. I think in a lot of ways, a lot of churches have gotten away from that, and they have focused too much and not too much on politics and what's going to get people in the pews to give money, and less on building that community and taking care of one another, which is, I think government has had to step up.
Yeah.
And so I would love to see churches go back to kind of actually being communities that take care of each other.
Yeah, I mean, other organizations too. There were so many organizations that used to do that and still do. I mean, so even the organizations now, sometimes, there's a lot of good social service agencies. Sometimes it becomes a business model, at least the way I see it, where we become too worried about funding and resources when it's important. Oh, thank you. Sorry. But it becomes so much about making sure there's incomes and outcomes that sort of meet, that the organizations sort of get lost, that they're dealing with people. That's one of the reasons the organization you meant, Starfire, which you've had Tim vote on here and stuff, is amazing, because it really is people first. I mean, they do make money and they know they need to make money, but they care about the people they're working with as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, is there, so are you going to go, so last question, is there anything, you're going to go to the All-Star game? Is there anything the city's doing big for that? Because
there's a million things going on at the All-Star game. I'm not planning to be at the game. It was a little over my price range. I think it was like $1,500. But I'll be around town. I'm sure I'll be down at the banks. I'll be at a lot of events surrounding the All-Star game. It's an incredibly exciting time for our city, and we're doing a lot to embrace it and make people feel welcome here.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers today?
No, thank you for doing what you do. How we empathize with more people is by talking to them, and we need to do a better job of that. So I think you're a part of the solution.
Yeah, thank you for coming on here and sharing your story and help us be able to be empathetic.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for watching today's podcast. You can see more exclusive content at jasonsconnection.org.